Ja, der kan vi sige velkommen til webinar med nLogic. Lavsørensen i nLogic her. Med løsningssalg inden datasenter. Vi har sat op FileStorage redefined webinar i dag, fordi vi har gjort lidt ulike implementeringer nu i løbet af vinteren og har skaffet os erfaringer med produkter, som fungerer bra ude i kunde sammenhæng, og har lyst til at dele nogle af de erfaringer, som er. Jeg skal ikke gå sådan super tekniske ting i dag, men dele lidt om teknologi, som vi ser giver fordeler i forhold til, hvordan fileserver, håndtering af fileserver, håndtering af store volumer kan gøres i ulike settinger. Fileserver har udviklet sig fra gode gamle NAS eller Windows fileserver til at vi nu også kan have fileserver i en HCI-sammenhæng. Enten man kører virtuelle workloads i sammenhæng med den, eller man ikke gør det. Og det er taget videre til, at man har mulighed for at analysere i høj grad og få en helt ny værktøjer, som man ikke traditionelt har haft i fileserververdenen. Vi har sat op en runde i dag, og så har vi sat op et par ekstra events, som kommer næste uge og ugen efter også, og der kommer mere end det. Næste uge, torsdag 30. har vi et webinar om, hvordan man bygger cloud native infrastruktur. Det handler om automatisering, både på en HCI-løsning lokalt, og på en HCI-løsning, som er koblet imod sky, enten det er Azure, Amazon eller hvad det er. Hvordan man kan tage med sig kanskje noget af den eksisterende scriptbasen, tage den ind i et automatiseringssystem og nyttiggøre det og koble det på tværs. Også lidt om, hvordan man får brugt containerteknologi på at få enablet det på en enkel måde. Det er ting, som tvinger sig frem og ofte kommer med udviklere, som pludselig har behov for den type infrastruktur og teknologi, der må vi få på plads og få støtte for. Det skal vi snakke lidt om på næste torsdag også. 7. maj, efterfølgende torsdag, der har vi sat op en runde, som hedder få kontrol på skykostnaderne og sikkerheden over, faktisk. Vældig mange flytter workloads til Azure og andre pladser. Og så bliver det lidt som i gamle dage, hvor det var vældig enkelt at provisionere en ny VM, og så fik vi en til og en ting til, og så fik vi det her VM sprawl problemstillinger. Der findes der gode værktøjer for at se på, hvad vi faktisk bruger, også for at right-size forbruget af ressourcer i for eksempel Azure. Skal vi tage en runde på det. Så har vi jo tænkt, at vi skulle gøre det lidt sådan okay, for det der som sidder antageligt hjemme. Kanskje nogen, som er på jobben. Jeg drog ind på jobben for at have lidt fred og ro fra det, som sker hjemme med barn og så videre. Men der sidder sikkert hjemme flere af der. Og for at det skulle blive lidt okay, så tænkte vi, at vi serverer noget teknologi, der bestiller noget pizza, og så må det jo blive bra. Send en, håber der har gjort det, der faktisk har den der pizza stående foran der nu. Det er lov at tage billede og sende, hvis man har lyst til det. Men uansett, logistikken er, jeg trenger ikke at tage billeder af pizzaen, bare med at tage billeder af kvitteringer, i hvert fald send den til vores kollega Hege, som på mailadressen market@nlogic.no. Så vipser vi tilbage og sørger for at tage den kostnaden der. Så får det lidt at spise og lidt påfyld i forhold til teknologi, og så gør vi kanskje en god tjeneste ved at støtte det her lokale pizzabutikken, eller hvad der måtte foretrække samtidig der. Agenda i dag er delt op i to. Først skal vi se på Enterprise NAS fra Nutanix, hvorfor de gør det, hvordan de gør det. Vincent Van Engelen, som skal tage sig igennem det. Og så skal vi se på peer software, hvor Dennis Eulenburg diskuterer og præsenterer, hvordan vi kan håndtere store filsystemer på tværs af flere lokationer. Plus hvordan man kan migrere store filsystemer. Sådan alle sammen til problemstillingen med vældig mye filer, vældig mye døde filer, som ikke er blevet rørt på mange år. Det findes der gode værktøjer for at håndtere, og det skal vi dykke lidt ind i. Og der skal jeg tage og skifte til engelsk, sådan at de her folkene kan være med. Vincent, you're with us?
Yes, I am.
Yep, and now you're even unmuted. That's good. And I know that we have also Dennis here, and we also have John from PS Software also. So I'm sure you could follow me for a short introduction. It's pretty much the same as usual. So just hand it over to you guys, and yeah, as we have both Dennis and Vincent and John from also PS Software here, if you want to add something to what Vincent is saying, keep it open and keep the discussion. And for you guys at home, use primarily, I think, the chat. Then I will take the questions and the best way we can. So Vincent, with that, I suggest you take over the presentation. Take it from there.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. The screen sharing has been disabled, so if you might enable that, that would be great. I'll start with a short introduction while we'll fix the technology. Yep. Yeah, I think. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. Good. Well, my Norwegian is a little bit rusty, but I think you kind of gave already a brief introduction. I'm Vincent Van Engelen from Nutanix. I lead the storage and availability business for Nutanix in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And today I will talk about file storage and unstructured data in the enterprise cloud, and what we actually see in the field, right? So to start, we all know this guy, right? And one of his most famous sentences was, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking used when we created them." And I think that is the red line of this presentation, because currently we are doing exactly the same thing for our file serve and unstructured data in general, like we did like 25 years ago. And I think looking at the market, we need to, and the current situation, we need to change that and help our customers to better manage their unstructured data. Reason for that, I think it's quite common knowledge, but in 2025, which is only 5 years away, we will be creating 175 zettabytes of data each year. 175 zettabytes of data. I remember when I started in storage, I thought a terabyte was a lot. That also says something about my age. But you know, in 20 years, a lot of things changed, and especially the number of terabytes and zettabytes we will be creating. A large part of that data will also be coming out of IoT and edge computing, unstructured data, and in the form of social media, email, mobile, video, the things we actually create. And of course, there will also be a lot of applications creating a lot of unstructured data. If you actually look at in 2020, which we currently live in, 80% of all data in the world is unstructured. And if it's unstructured, it will be addressed by something which is file storage or object storage. But the thing is that if you look closely, in the last, 15 years, we have been growing dramatically. And we are actually managing the data the same way as we did 20 years ago, the same way as we did 10 years ago. And even now, we are still using exactly the same management methods to manage unstructured data. In a survey IDC did, it showed that people are already looking at different solutions for managing that amount of data. And 90% of the respondents said that they would like to have a hybrid cloud model to manage that explosive data growth. But if you look closely, only 18% of the respondents are already deploying a hybrid cloud model to address the issues they have with unstructured data. And the reason for that actually is complexity. So if you compare the complexity of the traditional NAS systems and you want to integrate them into a hybrid cloud model, it's quite difficult. So it's kind of stopping them. It's stopping them from implementing their optimal model. And I think one key reason for that is the platform. And I think there are good platforms and bad platforms for your unstructured data. Not saying that the traditional architectures are bad, but they're just built for a different era, right? Like 20 years ago, it was a great solution. 10 years ago, it was still okay. But if you look at the current growth of data and the way we would like to manage it, they just can't, it's not a good fit anymore. And I think we should compare the good platforms with Swiss Army knives, right? So shared architecture, single user experience, and capable of serving many use cases. I like there's a little story to this as well. You all know Victorinox, right? The inventor of the Swiss Army knife. Actually, in 2008, they saw their revenue dropping by 70%. The reason for that was because of the terrorist attacks. They were not allowed to sell the knives anymore at the airports, and mostly what they sold was at the airport. But within half a year, they changed their company into selling travel gear, suitcases, jackets, clothing. So it kind of changed their business model within half a year. And the year after, they even did 160% of what they normally would do before the crisis. What actually showed was that Victorinox was not really a product. It was the brand, was the platform. And I think we should look exactly like that to infrastructure. We should build a platform which is suitable, flexible, intelligent, and able to run multiple use cases on the same platform. And it's exactly what we bring with Nutanix. So if you look at the Enterprise Cloud OS from Nutanix, we are able to run multiple services on it, just like Amazon, right? If you ask Amazon for a service, they just spin it up and present it to you. And that's exactly what you would do within the Nutanix Enterprise Cloud. People know us from VM and block services. That's where Nutanix grew and got their fame, I would say. But why not run file services onto the same platform? Why not do exactly the same for Opptak services and maybe also integrate backup services into the same platform? The advantage of that is that you can manage all those use cases from one single pane of glass. All your silos will be managed to one single pane of glass. So actually, there are no more silos. You will just spin up a service and manage it exactly the same way as you do for the other services. And what you actually want is shared capabilities for all your services running on the platform. So if it's block service, if it's an object service, if it's file service, you will have exactly the same capabilities. So what are we solving? What are we solving with that strategy? What are we solving with that way of working? So if you look at legacy infrastructure and legacy file services and object services in general, you will see a lot of specialized skills. So people have been using a certain NAS infrastructure for the last 20 years, and there's a lot of specialized skills involved. And because of that, you will see a lot of our customers creating silos in the past. So a separate silo for NAS, a separate silo for block, a separate silo for objects, all sometimes different vendors. Could be a Microsoft environment, could be dedicated file services from the NetApps, the EMCs, the HDSs, the IBMs, you name it. But it's all really siloed. Also, people are really struggling with automation because the infrastructure was built for something which was actual 20 years ago. Automation capabilities are very limited. And I think the most important one, there's lack of visibility, what's happening on a file server and unstructured data environment. So typically, we know where the growth is, how much is growing. Right? So if we ask our customers, how fast is your environment growing? They probably know that because they need to do some proper capacity management. The thing is, if we ask, where is that growth coming from? That's a more difficult question. And if you ask for details on where is that growth coming from, so for example, which application, which users, why is the performance spiking in some time in a certain time frame, it's quite hard to see, and it's quite hard to give data on that. Also, if you look at the traditional architectures, we'll typically see forklift upgrades. So customers buying a certain infrastructure for, let's say, 5 years. They buy it in year 1, write it off in 5 years. The thing is, currently, and especially with the move to the cloud, there's hardly any flexibility. So you can scale up, but the thing is, if you scale up with additional hardware in year 3, you will write it off in 2 years. But if you scale down, it just sits there. But the hardware was already bought, it was already there. And there's no way to reuse it. And I think there are issues with a lot of our customers are seeing and fighting with. So it's not really built for the cloud, and it has no cloud-based consumption as well. So we thought about that. And the platform, I think a good platform for unstructured data should be self-healing, self-tuning. It would be scale up and scale out. So if you need more performance, just add more performance nodes. If you need more capacity, just add more capacity nodes. Without the need to have a forklift upgrade or a complete hardware refresh. I think a platform for unstructured data should have a single pane of glass management, and ideally it should be software defined. The thing is, if you have a large file environment and you need to do a data migration every 5 years, it's an immense burden on actual labor cost, and it's an immense burden in terms of time as well. So what you actually want is keep the functionality and just change the hardware. If you look at the platform we've built with Nutanix, it offers all that. It also offers native analytics, and I will show you a demo later on how that's actually working. It's completely self-servable and programmable. Because it's software defined, it's all API integrated, so you could easily integrate it with a self-service portal or even a customer portal. And it has cloud-like pay-as-you-grow. Because it's software defined, it's based on a term-based license. So for example, if you think that in 2 years, you will move a large part of your file data into a cloud provider, just buy 2 years, just buy exactly what you need and just scale up when you need it. So for example, in year 1, you buy 200 terabytes with a 5-year term. In year 2, you will buy 50 terabytes with a 4-year term and scale up like that to save on capital expense. Or when you have a cloud-first strategy and you think, well, I will be probably moving my unstructured data into the cloud anyway, just buy 1-year incrementals, and you can always scale down when needed. I think there are certain there are distinct use cases for files and objects. In files, we see a lot of high-capacity use cases. We see a lot of remote offices and branch offices, VDI, user profiles, and we see more and more objects positioned for backups, long-term retention, because it has native form, but also on DevOps. We will not go into the objects part in this webinar. We will focus on the files part. But if you are interested in hearing more about the Opptak platform as well, or the Opptak services, please reach out to nLogic after the call or directly to me. So if we look at file services, and I always compare it with the production lines in the past, there is a lot of automation, but still also a lot of manual work. And actually what you want for file service specifically, or managing your unstructured data specifically, is a fully automated production line. And I compare Nutanix Files exactly to that. Because Nutanix Files will give you the tools to manage massive scale data. What tools do we give the customer? It's an automatic remediation and recommendation engine. So for example, we will do trending, and we will see that in 2 weeks, you will hit a capacity problem. The administrator will get notified and will give a recommendation. So maybe just add more nodes or rebalance your data. Also look at data which is very static. Does it need to be there? But also for performance problems. So if we see a trend that you will hit a performance problem within 2 weeks, we will also give a recommendation on what to do with the performance problems. Add more compute, rebalance, look at specific spikes in your environment. The system will also be self-healing. So when there are any issues, the system will heal itself. It will be self-tuning, and it's also very easy to scale up and scale down. To address a new set of requirements, we built data analytics. And one of the new requirements we see is a massive focus on governance, risk, and compliance in our customers. I'll give you 2 examples. British Airways last year and Marriott Hotels last year, they were both fined. British Airways for $230 million, and Marriott was fined $123 million. The reason for that is they lost customer data, and we all are facing the issue of data breaches. Most of those data breaches will also come from inside. So you want to know what's happening with your data. And both of those companies were not fined because they lost data. Both companies were fined because they couldn't prove why it was lost, and they couldn't tell what they will do about it to prevent further loss in the future. And that's exactly what we will be addressing with Files Analytics. So File Analytics is a part of the Files product. So it's not an additional license. It's just part of the Files product we offer. And File Analytics does data classification automatically. It shows data history and aging. So how old is your data? We typically see that more than 80% is more than a year old. It will also be storing audit details of activity, and I think that's a very important one because we can actually show what's happening on your environment. So which users are trying to access data which they are not allowed to, which users are actually causing performance spikes, which users are causing growth, where's the growth coming from, what kind of data is that? Is that a video file? Is that are those images? And also we do anomaly detection, and I think anomaly detection is of very big value. So anomaly detection actually looks at the normal state of the file server, and we do that with machine learning. And if anything happens which isn't the normal state, it will automatically inform the administrator. So for example, if one of the users is storing, let's say, 50 terabyte of video files in one day, that's not normal behavior on a corporate site, and you will get notified. If a user is, for example, leaving your organization and is deleting all his personal files, or maybe even corporate files, you will get notified. So you will get a lot of visibility on what's actually happening on your file environment. So actually, it's giving data about the data. I will show you in a short demo later on into the presentation how it actually works. So we analyze what is stored. So we analyze user and data behavior. So we will not be looking into the data because of GDPR compliance, that's an issue, but we only look at what's actually happening with that data. So we will not be storing any sensitive information or actual content, but we'll only be storing the audits. We'll only audit the events which will actually happen on the system. Yeah, I will go into more detail in the demo. I will show you anomaly detection. I will show you the audit trails. I can show you a little bit of roadmap because it's very near-term roadmap. The reason why I show you is that because we know a lot about the data, we can do intelligent things with it. So one of the intelligent things is data classification and active and inactive data management. So because we know what's happening, we can also see that the majority of the data, mostly 80 to 90%, is older than 6, maybe 12 months. Why keep all that data on your primary system? Why not move that off to something S3? Create a hybrid cloud, maybe on-prem, maybe off-prem, maybe as a hybrid version, on and off-prem. So we will be having the capability to tear off everything static to S3, fully transparent for the user. So the user will still see his file, is still able to open it, but on the back end, it's fetched from a certain cloud provider. Could be Amazon, could be Nutanix Sky, could be Microsoft. This is one of the examples of the recommendation and remediation engine. So in this case, there were some performance problems observed, and you will get notified. And recommendation in this case is scale up or rebalance. So you will see a massive decline on storage management in general. Like I said, it's fully API driven. So you can automate a lot of things which you normally would do on your file environment, or even put it off behind a self-service portal or even a customer portal. So to cut a long story short, our vision is actually a private and a hybrid cloud integration from a file server perspective, where you will have your active data on-prem, your passive data off-prem, with complete file analytics, complete visibility of actually what's happening. Because it's software defined, it's really easy to implement it. It's really easy, of course, to also switch hardware vendors every 5 years, and it's really easy to scale up and scale out. We will have a business study. We did a business study together with IDC, where IDC actually interviewed a large part of our customer set. And based on those interviews, they saw a 440% decline on their 5-year ROI. They had a 66% decline on total cost of operations, and even a payback time of 7 months compared to their traditional architectures. So what's different, right? Like I said, it has one single pane of glass for all different workloads. It's self-healing and it's self-optimizing. It will tier data across SSDs and spinning drives transparently, so you always have the best cost to performance ratio. Scale up, so you could scale from a single node up to many nodes for petabyte size environments. So start small and grow big. If you need more performance, just add more file server VMs, or add more compute capacity in that case. And last but not least, deep data intelligence. So we can actually show you what's happening in your file and unstructured data environment. I will go to a quick demo. if there are any questions during the demo, please feel free to jump in. I already see some questions entering via the chat. Very good, that's answered already. Okay, I will quickly go to the demo. So as I told, it's the file environment is it's part of the Nutanix Enterprise Cloud environment. So it's fully integrated into Prism, which you actually see over here. And if you see, for example, if you go to the upgrade, you can do a one-click upgrade for your central environment, also for your file services, but you can also do that separately if you want. So upgrading the whole system is really easy. So it's part of the central management interface, and in one click you go into the file server interface. So I will show you how easy it is to roll out a file server. Let me see. It's not. I think I need to upgrade that one. I will show you a share. So for example, I'll create a test share. I want to deploy it on this file server. I will give a maximum size, and then I can choose between NFS and SMB. What I can also do is multi-protocol access. So the same data can be accessed via SMB protocol and the NFS protocol. Then I can choose between a distributed share and a standard share. A distributed shares we use to increase performance. So multiple VMs will be handling the same data, and it will increase performance dramatically. It of course has self-service restores included. So if you click this one, users can self-service restore via the right click and previous versions. Summary, create, and done. So really easy to manage. Also, there's quota management, of course, included. So you can set quotas per share. You can set quotas on a user level. Let's go to the file analytics part. So in my presentation, I told you about the capacity trending. So if you look over here, you can see the exact capacity trends happening on your file server. So added capacity, capacity removed, and net change. If you click on it, you get the details on where that actually happened. An interesting one, of course, is also the permission denials. If you see a certain user trying to access certain data which has permission denial, that should be something to look at. And you can even see this user, for example, is trying to target and to access these files. Question is, why is he doing that? Also, it gives you deep visibility of actually what it's on your file server. So in this case, you will see a lot of disk images, but you can also select on images, a video, and others. This is customizable, by the way, so you can exactly see what's happening on your file server and where that growth is coming from a file point of view. Active users, top access files, and also file operations. So what's actually happening on my file server, and why is it performing the way it is performing. I think this is a really important one, the anomaly alerts. So in this sense, multiple users have permission denials, and you will get notified why those denials are happening and which users are actually causing those issues. You can also do audit trails. So, for example, on a file level, what's happening with this file? So who's accessing it? What's happening with a certain file? You can also see what's happening with a certain user. So, for example, I'll take admin. What is he doing in my environment? What's his behavior? So it gives you exact details what is happening on your file environment and what kind of anomalies are there in my file environment. So as you can see, the management and visibility management is easy, and visibility has increased enormously if you compare it to traditional solutions. Are there any questions?
Well, Vincent, thank you. Laura here. I think there was a question about the migration actually, but I think that part is, I believe, for Dennis to manage. We can unmute if anyone wants to do, or you can unmute yourself if you have questions to Vincent.
Hello, Tommy here.
Hi.
I was wondering, the file analytics, is that licensed? Do you have to pay anything for that, or is that included?
It's included, so it's part of the product. So it's a standard feature of our Files product.
Okay, I saw that you have to push like a deploy file analytics. Is that creating a separate VM, or could
Yes.
you do? Okay, do you have?
It's running on a separate VM, but there's no charge for that.
Okay, but is the dashboard like a separate graphical user interface, or is it integrated in Prism Central or Prism Helma?
It's integrated. So it's integrated completely in Prism and Prism Central.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, that's right. I can just add to it, Tommy. It used to be a separate license, but that has changed. So now it is included in the solution and actually just simplified also the licensing.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So
there are only two types of licenses to make it very easy. So there is a license for a mixed environment, so if you want to run multiple workloads, including files, onto the same cluster. But if you are in petabyte scale, there's also a dedicated license which you can use for very large scale, which is including the AOS part into the license as well.
Exactly. And for the actual technical setup, is it 3 VMs that's being provisioned across a Nutanix cluster, is that right?
Yes, that's right. So typically we start with 3 VMs, but for remote office and branch office, you could do also one node deployments.
Yeah.
So typically you start with 3 nodes, but for remote office, branch office, you could do 1 node. Typically, in Files environment are 3 VMs.
Yeah. So how small and how big can you make a Nutanix Files environment?
You can start with a terabyte. Actually, all Nutanix customers already have a terabyte for free, so they can already start using it. You can even use it in production. And we have multiple petabyte environments running in the field. So yes, start small, scale big.
Exactly. And you could build a dedicated, either a hybrid where you do run both workloads, other VMs, and Nutanix Files, or you can make a dedicated environment.
Yes, but all managed into Prism. So the reason, for example, for doing a dedicated environment is if you have a large scale deployment which is doing a lot of performance file serving. You probably you want to have separate environments isolated from the other environments, so they don't interfere with each other in terms of performance. What we also see is that if you have a lot of performance headroom on your, let's say, compute cluster, why not run file servers onto the same cluster and just make maximum use of the capacity you have on the cluster?
Exactly.
So it's just sizing.
So basically, my perception is that you get everything you were used to have from traditional enterprise NAS solutions, and then you add on top of that the scalability, the manageability of Nutanix, and also the analytics and insights part, which really, I think no one ever had a very good picture of what is actually going on the file servers and the shares and how old stuff is and so on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think last but not least, I think it's one of the first who is actually really software defined. And the benefit of software defined, of course, that hardware gets less relevant. So if in 5 years you want to switch from vendor A to vendor B and maybe vendor C, just add in more nodes, move out the old nodes, and everything stays in place.
And spanning also both the on-prem and the cloud, I understand that's part of the vision of Nutanix for Nutanix Files.
Exactly, and it's really near-term roadmap. So and we will be introducing it by we will be introducing it this year.
Yeah, so we can archive off if we want that, and have only hot stuff locally, rather use cheaper tier in the cloud.
Exactly. And with Nutanix Beam, you can also see what's the most price-effective way to do that. To give you complete insights on what's the most effective from a cost point of view, a cost structure point of view, where you could and should run your workloads.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions to Vincent before we hand it over to Dennis? Probably not. Then I hope we should be able to switch. And
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. Thank you, Vincent.
You're welcome, and thanks everyone for joining. If there are any questions, also please feel free to reach out to me directly, but also, of course, via nLogic. Thanks.
So Dennis, I think I made you a host, and you should be able to take it over and take it from here and speak about how peer software can help us actually get onto a Nutanix platform or live with different platforms and so on and so forth.
Okay, so first, John, would you like to introduce ourselves?
Yeah, certainly. Hello, and thank you, Lau, for having us on here. Person speaking is John Reeves. I'm Regional Sales Manager at Peer Software, and as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm English in lockdown, and very glad to be joining you here virtually. So my role is really to act as the sort of commercial contact at Peer Software, as Scandinavia is part of the region that I manage. But Dennis is one of our senior SEs based out of our regional technical headquarters in Germany. And I'm going to hand over to him now to take over this presentation and show you how Peer Software can meet a number of use cases in concert with Nutanix Files. Our contact details will be at the end of this presentation, so if there are any queries after this event, you can contact us directly or go through nLogic, either or. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Dennis now. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So first of all, I hope everybody is able to see my screen. So now we should switch from Vincent's screen to my screen. I hope that's the case. Maybe Lau, you can.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, like John said, my name is Dennis von Eulenburg. I'm from Germany, the north of Germany, working as a pre-sales SE at Peer Software. And today's scope from Peer Software should be how can we work together with Nutanix, and what value can we add to the already good environment with Nutanix. And to start things off, with Peer Software, like the name says, we are also completely software driven. So we don't sell any hardware boxes or appliances. And what we do is we care about file replication. So we are able to replicate your files between multiple Nutanix file systems, multiple locations, or like the question in the past, we can also help you migrating your data from your existing NAS device to Nutanix with nearly zero downtime. Okay, so let's start with the slides here and move on. So we had a time where file services tend to be hosted in one single location, so use your central core storage. Nowadays, with a different workload, it's necessary, or most of the time it's necessary, to have multiple locations with its own NAS device, with its own data store. Because imagine people are working with larger files, for example, AutoCAD, big media files, or even bigger Office documents. And I'm working from Germany, and the Nutanix file system is hosted in Oslo. I would like to open my big AutoCAD file, and maybe I can just take a 10-minute break. So that is the reason why administrators needs to store data locally more and more often. But this comes with different things to keep in mind, or different problems. And we as Peer Software, we want the administrator to get rid of thinking about how do I replicate my data? How can I store them on-prem? How get I rid of different versions, conflicts? How can I make sure file integrity is given? And this is what our goal is. So Peer Software helps you to replicate the data between all these different locations. And again, it don't have to be a worldwide replication. It can also be a replication between two different data centers. And I think this is the most important message from our slide. So I want you to remember after this session, you need to replicate files. Maybe Peer Software have the right solution for me. That is all you need to know. Everything we talk from now is just details. Yeah. So if you fall asleep during my slides, or if you get knocked out by pizza and cheese combo, don't worry. As long as you get this message, files, Peer Software, I have a problem, I'm fine with it. Okay, so how can Peer Software help you replicating your files and make them available on-prem? So we have one single software product. It's called Peer Global File Service, or in short, Peer GFS. So from a software perspective, really simple portfolio. And with Peer GFS, we can have different use cases and help you with Nutanix. So one of our use cases is enterprise file collaboration. So what does it mean? As I've said earlier, we are specialized in replicating files. And the way how we replicate files is we use our own real-time replication. So we do not replicate the files scheduled, like every 5 minutes, every hour, once a day. We are event triggered. So whenever a file is created, modified, delete, you change an ACL, we get the event and replicate the file immediately to the other site or to the other locations. And with file collaboration, we don't only replicate the files, we also make sure that you have version integrity. So we give you file locking. What does it mean? If someone, like let's say I'm sitting here in Hanover in Germany, and I open an Excel sheet, and my colleague John tries to open the same Excel sheet in London on his Nutanix file system, then he can only open it in a read-write mode. So we will make sure that only one person can open a file in a read-write mode, and all the other people around the world can only open it in read-only. Okay, so collaboration is real-time replication with file locking. But sometimes you don't need file locking. For example, if we're talking about VDI, Citrix, VMware, Windows profiles. I have my profile, you guys, you have your profile. We don't share any data. There's no need for file locking. So then we can just simply replicate the files again in real time between the different locations. And while the first use case here on the left side, collaboration, is always active-active, because otherwise file locking wouldn't make any sense, this use case can also be active-passive. Like, I have my Nutanix file system at the left, at the right I have a Windows server just for a disaster recovery failover scenario. And last but not least, we are also able to replicate your on-prem file storage into an object storage. This can be an object storage running in the cloud, like AWS, S3, Azure Blob, or it can also be on-prem, like Nutanix Objects. Yeah. But like Vincent, I won't focus on object and cloud replication too much in these slides. So if you have any questions or want to know more about cloud backup and replication, we're more than happy to give you another session. Yeah. So how does it work together with Nutanix? So with Nutanix, first of all, of course, we can help replicating files between multiple Nutanix file systems and make sure that the version is always the version integrity is ensured, so through file locking. Then at the moment, we have some momentum with Citrix environments. I don't know, Citrix seems to be really, really popular again. And imagine you have two Nutanix file system hosting on two different clusters in two different data centers, and you want to replicate your VDI user and profile data. And this is what we can do. Or you are using a different storage solution, a different NAS device, and you like the Nutanix Files solution after Vincent's presentation, but you cannot replace everything all at once. Like you have 10 different storage systems up and running in 10 different locations. Then we can help you to bring in Nutanix at 1 and 2 locations and then replace the old NAS systems with new Nutanix systems step by step. And of course, the question was already there. We can help you migrating your data from your Windows server, from your, NetApp device, whatever, from your EMC device to Nutanix Files. And this with near zero downtime. But I will give you more details about this later. So now let's start talking about file collaboration. Again, this is replication with file locking. I have a small picture here. I have 3 data centers, one in Munich, one in Oslo, one in London. In each data center, I have a Nutanix file system up and running, hosted on a Nutanix Files cluster, sorry. So first thing, we would recommend to use a DFS namespace from Microsoft to access the files, but this is not necessary. You can also use a direct share. And then in the next step, what we as Peer Software can do is we will implement our software on a VM running on the Nutanix hypervisor and integrate ourselves in the Nutanix file system. Then we also have a central management server where you can configure your jobs, monitor your jobs, send out email alerts, SNMP traps, stuff like that. And what this gives you is as soon as someone tries to open a document in Munich, we get the event, our agent here get the event that someone has opened a file in Munich and replicate this information to the other agents and make sure that no one else can open the same Excel sheet or the same document in the other locations in a read-write mode. They can only open it in a read-only mode. And because this is active-active, of course, if someone opens another document in Oslo, the file is locked in the other locations. And if you combine this with the DFS namespace, then you also get some kind of high availability for the folders or the shares that you replicate. So imagine someone tries to open a file in Munich, but Munich is not up and running anymore for whatever reason, network outage, hardware failure, whatever. Then the DFS namespace will redirect you to the next location, maybe it's London, give you your file from London, and of course, we also have file locking then, so no one can open the same file in Oslo in a read-write mode. As soon as the connection is established again and the system in Munich is up and running again, we will ask our management center, dear Mr. Management Center, what happened in the meantime? And the management center will take care that all the data will be transferred, or all the data that is missing in Munich will be transferred from the rest of the world to Munich. And as soon as Munich is up to date, people are able to access the files over the share in Munich again. So again, this is file replication in real time with file locking. So the next use case, replication without file locking. This can be active-active or active-passive for VDI. So John Lau and myself, we are working in 2 different data centers. John is working in London and get his virtual desktop from the hypervisor running in London. His profile data is stored at the Nutanix FileSystem. Lau and myself, we are working in Oslo, so our data is stored in the Nutanix FileSystem in Oslo. So now, poor John got hit by a disaster. So his data center is not up and running anymore for whatever reason. But the good thing is we already replicated the whole data over to the other side. And as soon as he opened his virtual desktop from the system in Oslo, his data is already there, up to date, 0 downtime, and he can open his profile with everything he needs. Okay. So this is without file locking, because as you can see, everybody is working with a different virtual desktop. Everybody has its own profile data, user data. There's no need for file locking. And as soon as the London site is back online again, of course, the agent will ask the management server, dear Mr. Management Server, what happened in the meantime? We will replicate the data back. And as soon as the data is up to date again in London, you get his files from the Nutanix FileSystem in London again. Okay. So any questions so far? I can't see anything in the chat. Let me check the question window. No, I don't think so. If there is anything, just shout, just write something in the chat and let me know. So next use case with Nutanix. I already said it before. So if you have a bigger environment and multiple systems up and running, maybe you're not able to replace everything with Nutanix at the same time. So what we can do is we can implement ourselves in Windows servers, EMC systems, NetApp systems, and replicate the data between your existing systems and the Nutanix systems. So what does it mean? Imagine you want to get rid of one of these systems. Just put your new Nutanix system right next to it. Use our software to replicate the data in the background to the new Nutanix system. And as soon as all the data is up to date, you can make your new Nutanix system the new target for your end users. Okay, and this can go on at each location till we have replaced everything with Nutanix systems. So this can be used for a migration, but this can also be used for a mixed environment. Wait, there is something showing up in the chat window. With collaboration, do you have any form of Microsoft Office integration so that multiple users can edit the same document at the same time? So if you use shared documents at Microsoft Office, then we won't lock the document and you can use it with multiple users in different locations. For native Microsoft Office documents with no shared working, no shared mode, then it will just be locked. So there's no feature from ourselves. But we will take care that if you have a document from Office that is allowed to work with multiple people, then we won't lock it. Okay. I hope this is okay so far.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good. So, but again, you can not only use this for migration, you can also use this like, yeah, I have this small remote office here with, don't know, 5 users working. I'm not willing to put a expensive storage device in there. I just have this old Windows box up and running there and I'm fine with it. Then you can use this to replicate the data between your old Windows box and your Nutanix file system in your headquarters. Or you can use it for a one-way replication. Imagine you have your headquarters with your big Nutanix file system and you have 20 remote offices with just small Windows boxes. Then you can use our software to replicate the data from the remote offices in a one-way replication to your Nutanix system. And then you can do your traditional backup from the Nutanix system. You can move your files and archive it at the Nutanix object system. So yeah, multiple things you can do then. So last but not least, the migration part. I've already spoke about migration a little bit, but to focus or say a couple of words about migration or give you more information about migration, the way how we migrate the data, again, is with real-time replication. And because we monitor the source file system 24 hours a day, we know exactly what files were we able to replicate and what files were locked the whole time by a different application maybe. So when you plan your cutover window, you don't have to scan your 3 million files again and wait 6 hours till the scan is finished just to replicate the 10 missing files that has changed. We know right away these 10 files, we were not able to replicate them, so we will use the downtime and just replicate the 10 files. You don't need a final scan. You don't need to scan everything again. And of course, we have something like you can decide bandwidth throttling, how many threads should I use on my source system? Is this NetApp system here running at 90% utilization because it's really, really old? Then you can say, okay, dear peer software, please just use 5 CPU threads to monitor, to replicate the data, stuff like that. You can replicate NTFS permissions. You can create a checksum to make sure that the data is transferred. So everything that you expect from a modern migration suite is there. Okay. So then this is how our software looks like. It's a central management center. At the bottom left, you can see all the different devices, Nutanix files, Windows servers that are connected to our central management server. And then you can configure different jobs. And again, it can be a job with file locking, without file locking, active, passive for CDP or rollout software packages. Or it can be replicating on-prem file data into an object storage for backup, archive, analytic services. I don't know, you name it. You can use object storage for so many different things. And yeah, it's up to you. So before I jump into my live demo, the key takeaways is we have one solution to manage your environment. The administrator don't have to worry about the files being, how to replicate the files between different locations. You just set the job up one time and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to deal with file locking, different versions. Our software will do all this for you. Then you can put together different storage vendors, different storage silos. You can help people accessing the data with local file access. And of course, you can also leverage your data into the cloud. So we don't care, for example, if you have 5 Nutanix systems on-prem and 1 Windows server up and running in Azure, we can replicate the data between these different systems, regardless if they are running on-prem or in a cloud environment. Doesn't matter. Again, any questions before I jump into my demo? Okay, don't seem so. To be honest, this is not really a demo. I have created a small video because of the latency. Our demo environment is running in the States and the latency is really bad. So let me share my screen. Where is my media player? There we go. So Lau, can you again make sure that everybody can see the screen? Can you give me a feedback?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, good. I can still see there's a question. I have to check them as answered. Okay, there we go. Good. So makes this full screen. Again, this is how our software looks like. And at the bottom left here, ignore the mouse from the video. At the bottom left here, you can see all the different systems, all the different agents. And I have a Nutanix system up and running in Berlin and in Dublin. So I have a system, a Nutanix file system in Berlin and a Nutanix file system in Dublin. London, Munich, New York, and Paris are Windows systems. So now I have already a couple of jobs up and running here. I have a cloud backup job that replicate files from my Windows file server in New York to Nutanix objects. And I have a job replicating files from my Windows file server into, I think this is Azure Blob. So let's create a new job. And I've made the decision to make a file collaboration job, but you can see we have different job types here. We have cloud backup, we have collaboration, which is the replication with file locking. We also have file replication, which is one-way replication, so traditional active-passive for CDP, for example. And we have file synchronization, which is usually used for VDI infrastructure. So let's start with file collaboration. Give the job a certain name. Again, file collaboration is the replication with file locking. So I want to replicate files active-active between my Nutanix system in Berlin and Dublin. So go for it. First thing we have to do is decide what kind of operating system is up and running. In this case, it's Nutanix. I select my first system. Then I have to give them the credentials I would like to use to log into my Nutanix system. And I've already created something here. So if you just created it once, it's stored. And as you can see here, there's a validation process to make sure that you met all the pre-requirements. And it just gives you back the version that is running on your Nutanix system. Next is choosing what volume, what share, what folder, or what Nutanix file system do you want to replicate. And as you can see here, you can replicate your whole Nutanix file system. You can just choose a dedicated share to replicate your data, or you can even choose just a subfolder to replicate your data. For example, or in this example here, I would use the DE file share 1 to replicate the data with a collaboration job, because people are actively working with the same data sets here. But there's another folder, another share called DE users, which is profile data. I will create a second job, a file it's already there, a file synchronization job, where I will replicate this without file locking. Okay. But in this case, let's start with a file share. So it's my first system is added. I can select the second system. Again, this is a Nutanix file system in my environment. I choose the Dublin system. I have to provide the credentials or use the already underlying credentials I've created before. Makes a short validation, and we can select our whole system for the share or the folder. And as you can see here, it's different. So the share name here, the file share name, is different to the share name in Berlin. Also, the user share name is different than the share name in Berlin. So it doesn't matter, the names do not have to match, and the same goes for the folder. If you don't select a share, if you select a folder to replicate it between different systems, the names don't have to match. Okay, so now when I have at least 2 systems, I can go to the next step. And the next question is, do you want to replicate NTFS permissions? When you want to replicate NTFS permissions, you have to make sure that the user account that we are using to replicate the data have the necessary rights. And of course, the system should be in the same domain or at least in a trusted relationship. We can replicate the traditional DACLs, so the Microsoft security information. We can also replicate the owner information. If you do not replicate the owner information of a file, then we would just use the administrator as a default owner for each file. And if somebody still uses this, we are also able to replicate the SACLs. But honestly, I don't think I have a single customer using this anymore. Next is the application support. And this is important to understand. These are not all the applications that we support, but these are the applications where we know we have to make some special adjustments in the background to make file locking work. Yeah, for example, Microsoft Office here. When you open your Microsoft Office document, maybe you have already seen it. You are not working in your original file. You are working in a hidden file, something like --file name. That we will lock the file, the correct file at the other location. We have to look for the certain string and make sure that we monitor it. Or with AutoCAD, there's a master image. Would be a really bad idea to lock the master image. Then only one person can work with AutoCAD and the rest of the guys cannot work with AutoCAD anymore. So now you can see on the left side, my job is configured, but it's not up and running now. So before we start the job, let's have a look into our file system. I have I think at the left side is the Berlin share, yes, and at the right side is the Dublin share. So you can see the data, the majority of data is the same, the folders are the same, but there are a couple of drawings and Word documents and a couple of Excel sheets that are not replicated between both sides already. So as you can see, you don't have to use our software for the first initial transfer. If you have already used another software to copy the data, USB drive, RoboCopy, whatever, you can set up our software on the existing data, and we will just do a checksum calculation and only replicate data that is missing on the other side. So when we start the job, what we do is we create a superset, and the files from site number 1 will be replicated to site number B, and the files from site number B will be replicated to site number 1. So let's start the job. And now let me see that I have to stop this because this is just a small demo lab and it was really, really quick. So you can see down here, before we start the job, we do a couple of checks, like we are checking, do we have access to the system? Is our service up and running? Can we create files, delete files, change ACLs? All this stuff will be checked. And when the check is finished, it will start running. And you can see now it's scanning through the directories. It will create a checksum. And only if the checksum doesn't match, it will go through the directory and check every single file individually. So you can see it found a total of 229 files, 500 megabyte. We only need to replicate 9 files, a total of 16 megabyte, and it's completed. So it only took us 6 seconds. Again, demo lab, just a small data set. In a real life scenario, it would take longer, I guess. You can see we've created a superset. Each Nutanix file system look exactly the same. And if I create a new file on the left side, we get an event and replicate it to the other side immediately. The same goes when you delete something, change ACLs, stuff like that. And because we are talking about collaboration here, if I open a document at system number 1, our agent get an event, and you will see in our management center here that the document is opened on the host in Berlin. Berlin is the source by the user H solo. So we will make sure that no one can open the file in Dublin by setting this flag here, this false flag. So if someone tries to open the same file in Dublin, it's already locked and he can only open it in a read-only mode. So let's check this. And because it's a video, I'm pretty sure it will work. So there we go. This is the Microsoft Office message. So this depends on your application. if you get the user information. Microsoft Office and AutoCAD, for example, give you user information. Some other, like I think, for example, Photoshop won't give you user information. It would just say that the file is opened by someone else. So that gives me a notification as soon as the original file is available. Now you can see I have opened the file in the left window in a read-write mode. In the right window, it's just read only. So type something here. Let's save the changes, close the file, and let's stop this. I just paused the video. Now the file log is released, transferred to the other side, and as soon as the file log is at the other side, it depends, of course, a little bit on latency, then you get the file release message. And you can open it in read-write mode, and all the changes are already there. So if we refresh this view here, then we will see now it changed. Now the file is opened in Dublin by the same user, can be a different user, of course, in a real life scenario, and the file is locked in Berlin. Okay. And yeah, that's it for a high level overview. There's even more you can do. We can give you a demo about VDI replication, cloud replication, CDP, stuff like that. So if you want to have a more detailed session, then just reach out to Lau, to us, to Vincent, whoever, it doesn't matter. And we are more than happy to do this for you. So that's it from our side. Here are our contact details, but I think, Lau, are you gathering the slides and send it out to everybody?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, then you have our contact details in the slides, in the email you get from Lau. Okay, questions?
Yeah, bring on anyone questions. Otherwise, I was wondering, Dennis, first of all, thank you. And I was amazed how well you were aligned with the video recording. Amazing. Lagging is not a good friend, so that was probably clever. There's different ways of doing synchronization and DFS. What is the main differentiator again for you guys?
Yeah, so if you use DFSR, it's Microsoft. First of all, it's Microsoft only. So there's nothing you can do to bring in Nutanix. I mean, you can host VMs on Nutanix and run a Nutanix Windows file server on Nutanix, but then you don't have all the nice features Vincent just mentioned, right? So I won't recommend that. So we will be able to replicate the data not only for Microsoft, between Nutanix and Microsoft and other vendors. And of course, DFSR was never designed for a collaboration workload. It was more designed for a, let's say, disaster recovery scenario maybe. So there's no file locking. Whenever someone opens a file, two different people can also open the same file, and whoever saves the file the last time will overwrite the work of the other guy. I think this is the major difference. And our replication is based on TCP or SSL, which is way more stable when it comes to low bandwidth, high latency environments. So we really have customers with challenging environments. And when I'm talking from replicating files from Europe to South America, this is not even really challenging. We have customers using a satellite connection to an offshore oil platform with a 2-second latency, not millisecond, second latency. And it's also running. And I think this won't work with DFSR.
Yeah, thank you. So it brings me to you are API based, so you actually get a event from the system that you're looking into when something happens. Is that right? An act on that?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So whenever a file is created, modified, deleted, you change ACLs or any other flag, like setting an archive bit or something like that, we get an event and replicate it over immediately. And of course, this depends on your latency. So let's come back to the example with the guy with his offshore platform with his 2 seconds of latency. This means before we can transfer the file log, the guys on the offshore oil platform are able to open the file in a read-write mode for 2 seconds, because this is physics. We cannot break the rules of physics. But if something like this happens, we have a conflict resolution, there's a pop-up message, there is an email alert, an SNMP trap, whatever you want, and you can make a decision like user A should overwrite the file from user B, or create a copy of the file, or the last modified file should win, or location number A should overwrite location number B. But this is more likely to happen during a network outage, not in an ongoing replication.
So the API is also what you use for migration?
Yes, correct.
And you leverage that to continually replicate changes and then do a cutover. How's that done again?
That's correct. Absolutely. So we integrate in the API from, let's say, NetApp, EMC, or Windows. We can just install our software directly, so there is no need for an API. We will just run it as a service in the background and replicate the files, continuously. However, let's say you use a small NAS box like a QNAP, Synology, or something like that don't has API access. Then you can still use traditional scheduled replication. But of course, then you still need to do a final scan with your data.
Exactly. Okay, a different thing. Actually, there's a lot of companies that has been spinning up desktop as a service, Horizon, View, Synapse and desktop, and so on and so forth. You can actually help in replicating the home directories.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The profile data, the user data, we can replicate nearly everything you want. I mean, of course, we are a file company. So if you have something like I store my big SQL database in an SMB3 share, this is none of our business. But user data, profile data, shared data doesn't matter.
Right. So for our companies to be able to handle the many users now accessing these platforms and accessing file shares that are maybe not sized for that.
Yeah, correct. And just to make clear, these slides are always talking about enterprises replicating data over the whole globe. Yeah, we have customers from the small lawyer company with just 2 systems in 2 different rooms, up to companies with 200 locations all over the world. So this is really scalable from small to big.
All right, okay. Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Vincent, for taking us through this stuff. Really, the message was a lot of stuff happened on file services. It really has evolved. New stuff that we can do. We have good experience with that in the field, and wanted to get that across. So, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Dennis, for taking the time.